afternoon, everybody. We are ready to get things underway. We're letting it rip today. Lots of newsworthy Michigan items to talk about. And it's great to be with you. February the 4th, 2026, as you know, hopefully. And we are set to talk about Michigan, and we are looking ahead to this weekend. It's a great weekend if you're a Michigan fan. There's tons of things to take in. The winter sports, we'll revel in that, get to it. Coming up, football, bunch of different items, quarterback, wide receiver, leaders, captains, looking towards spring, commitment from track and field, a new player from track and field on the football team, all of that. But before I dive into those things, I wanted to go back to really last Friday, but Monday, when I was talking about Michigan State and their dirty play, and Dusty May was talking about it, and I was putting out, hey, Michigan had a dirty play here, and Michigan State had a dirty play here, and they had a dirty play here. So it was more dirty plays by Michigan State than what you would look at from Michigan. And then folks were like, well, what about the trip? And I thought the trip might have been on the flagrant foul that Yax was going up for you, which was a dirty play, but it got whistled. And it's one of those dirty plays that when your guy doesn't get hurt and somebody is swiping at the ball and they get called for a flagrant, was officiated correctly, even if you wanted to say that it crossed the line, which, it did, but you do cross the line in situations like that. But I afterwards, it was shortly afterwards, I did see the replay of the trip by Fears, and that definitely goes into the category where you'd say dirty, a punk, not the kind of guy you'd want on your team. Even if, there's a long list of players that you'd say, you hear people say, oh, yeah, if he was on your team, you would like him. And sometimes that's true. Somebody like Chris Chelios, he would have been someone that would have been on a list like that, because I liked Chelios when he was with the Wings, but I didn't like him when he was with the Blackhawks. You might understand that. You might be right there with me on that. But there are some players that even if they were on your team, you wouldn't like them. And Grayson Allen falls into that category. The first, the former Blue Devil. I mean, he's a dirty punk. I would never want him on any team that I was rooting for. Christian Laettner, I didn't really want him to root for him either. He ended up being on the Pistons. I wasn't really rooting for him. That wasn't something. There's a couple guys that played for the Bruins in hockey, and Matthew Barnaby, I hated him, and I wouldn't have liked him if the Wings would have acquired him. Brad Marchand, he's with Florida, but I wouldn't want. He's a good player, but I wouldn't want the Red Wings to get him. And of course, the ultimate player that I wouldn't want on my team because he's dirty, hack, punk, put him in that Fears category, would be Claude Lemieux back in the day. And, Fears has got he's still got a little Claude Lemieux in him, but there you go. You got to deal with it. It's interesting if you have one of those players, if he emerges and let's say Michigan had a dirty Fears, and you'd say, well, what do you embrace him? You say he's yours and all that. I don't know if Michigan has had you would call, well, you'd look to in basketball. One doesn't come to mind. Is there one in football? You'd say, oh yeah, football's a lot dirtier game. So I don't know, but I wanted to get that part out there and say, yeah, you guys almost feel like after the games, maybe I do need to go to Twitter, and I do need to get down on the weeds and look, because I I didn't rewatch the game. That would be something, rewatch the game. But then when people point out, oh, yeah, look what's going on there, and then you can check it out. I didn't see that by Monday's show. Now, also, I saw, State sending a lot of videos out there, and I would have put the or the Morez Johnson Jr. lowering his shoulder and slamming in. I think it actually was Fierce and crumbling him to the ground. That was a dirty shot. If you're a Michigan fan, you have to say that's dirty. That's dirty. Well, Tom Izzo could have mentioned that of lowering, your shoulder and popping Fierce, because he said there was some other of that stuff that they had going on too. That would have been the play for him to cite, but instead, Izzo cited Cheddar getting ready to shoot a shot, pump faking, and the Spartan went up in the air and Cheddar went into him. That's not a dirty play. Now you could say, you could call it if you wanted to. It wasn't. It's when you leave your feet. We've seen it a lot. You watch basketball, you jump into the guy and you get 3 shots. That's how that works. There's nothing dirty about that. So, I don't know. Tom Izzo, 71. He was turned 71. It happens. I used to say when, Joe Paterno would have his act, people would ask him a question and he'd be like, what? And he'd look over and act like he didn't know what was going on. In the end, it looked like he didn't know what was going on, or if he did know what was going on, it's tough getting old. I think Tom Izzo showed a little bit of that Monday when he was like, they had some of those too with Cheddar. Now, Cheddar did have what you would say a borderline dirty play is when the Spartan guy was running back and Cheddar kind of got in his way and kind of checked him. That's a dirty play. Now, MSU came back and had a very similar type play to McKinney where they kind of checked him. So maybe he was thinking, oh, I don't want to bring that one up because we checked one of their guys like that in a dirty play. But then Izzo was asked about his blow-by handshake, which was, real cold and fast, whatever. But instead, he's talking to media, so you guys are too focused on that. What about Dusty calling that late timeout? That's when Izzo erupted and ended up getting his tee. So he was fuming over there. And I guess he thought, Dusty was trying to rub it in a little bit. And Dusty explained that he called the timeout because last year at MSU, he had all that Holloway goofiness with him shoving a player. And then Izzo, that's not going to happen on our court. And then, he didn't even have a comeback when he was explained quickly. Whoever that reporter was like, Dusty explained it. He said, oh, well, that makes sense. Izzo, I don't know what you'd say, backtracking or running his mouth. He didn't have it. He lost it a little bit. So that's just I'm still thinking about last Friday and then Monday and then with the coaches. And then here we are on a Wednesday. And it also makes me think of a couple things that we've talked about on here that people have said it's just about the Natty this year. Forget everything else, just the Natty. And I get that sentiment. Then I was, again, on social media flying through, and I saw someone come on there and say, yeah, Michigan, great win. If they don't win the national championship this championship this season, it's been a failure. And I thought, it's one of those zingers to put in there, or a knife that you think, hey, I'm loving this. Is everything going on? And all of a sudden somebody lays down the gauntlet and says, hey, if they don't win it all, it's a failure. And I had to think, is it a failure if Michigan doesn't? I get it. I think for me, it would be a failure this year from what I've seen so far if Michigan doesn't get to the Final Four. I would call that a failure. But if they get to the Final Four, if they get to the national championship game and they lose in a national championship game and they lose, I'm not coming on here that Monday night on the Michigan basketball postgame live show and say, oh, thanks. It was a failure of a season. Golden opportunity, huge disappointment, all these but I'm not. So I don't know. Maybe I'm close because I said Final Four just a game before if they don't get there. But I'm not ready to deem it a failure if they don't win it all. That's where I'm at. Now, lots of folks when it comes to professional sports. That's the thing. It's just you either win a national or you either winning a title or it's a failure when you're in that spot. And I was thinking, would I apply that to the Pistons? And I don't think I'm being soft when I say no, I wouldn't. Now, Pistons is a very similar type situation. I think they need to win the Eastern Conference this year, or to feel because they've run away from everyone. They're playing. They've got the best record in the East, and they've got Cunningham. They've got Duran, who's come into his own. They've got Thompson, who's an awesome player. All the players, they fit in really well. They got the deadline tomorrow. We'll see. I know they made one deal, getting rid of Ivy for nothing, but they're not done. So we'll see what happens by 3:00 tomorrow. But they need to win the East, or their season would be a failure. They don't have to win the title. If Oklahoma City wasn't looking like this, I don't know, a dynasty, they just look great. They would be a huge underdog. I'm not saying they couldn't beat them, but I'm not saying that they have to beat Oklahoma City or else it's going to be a failure. So if there's a little failure, how far they've got to go type thought. My other thought is that if you just get it, and again, I get you got to win a national championship or you got to win a title. That's the only thing that matters, and you're consumed. If you take that approach, you are going to be a miserable person in your life because you rarely are going to get the championship. And then if you can't enjoy it along the way, you're going to be an insufferable person to yourself and anybody around you. And I've seen people that just have the wide eye, just championship. Then even when they win it, they're like, they got to win it again. Or, it's like, okay, maybe you should stop for like one day and think about it. And it just made me think about Friday. That game was not meaningless. Michigan beating Michigan State was a pure joy for Michigan fans. It was awesome being able to go up to East Lansing and winning in a place that they almost never win at 4 times. This century. Sweeping MSU this year would be a very nice accomplishment and be very enjoyable. And then the other things along the way, like a regular season title, a Big Ten tournament title, these are all things that you should, you don't just say, oh, season's over, it's great, it's all gravy now. No. But it's really awesome. Don't just, and I saw some of this on Friday, beat Michigan State and be like, nope, that doesn't really matter. The only thing good, but the only thing that matters is a natty. So I'll part company with you on that, and I'll argue it with anybody that wants to argue with it. But this is more of just of how to ride, have some enjoyment along the way. When Michigan, I think people can enjoy it when they beat Ohio State in football. This is part of that. It almost, in Ohio State, I was shocked this year being in the visiting locker room after the Michigan-Ohio State game when Ryan Day was up there and took the stage, and Day pretty quickly, and I think it was his opening remarks, said, well, it's great because we achieved our number one goal this season of beating Michigan. And I was thinking, wait, you're number one. So the year before they won the national championship, they lost to Michigan. And, the Michigan fans were like, yeah, you didn't beat Michigan. So it's a hollow natty. They were teasing them. And there's some truth to it. Ryan Day, they didn't win the national championship this year. And here he was after the Michigan game saying, well, we achieved our number one goal. That was weird. That part was weird. But going back to football, I think of 2021 and the football game against Michigan State. That was a great football game. That was the one where they got Hutchinson with the strip sack and it should have been a touchdown. And they took it off the board. I think they said, what did they say? His shin. Whether they said he didn't or didn't. It seemed like a really bogus, tough call. Bogus, tough call on Michigan. It was. And so Michigan lost that game. And then But they came back and beat Michigan State or Ohio State, and they made the playoff, and it was awesome. That was great. But they got smacked around by Georgia. But that team, it felt like they had reached their ceiling. JJ wasn't ready. Cade was only going to get you so far. Did a nice job that year. Give him his credit there. But they reached their ceiling when it came down to that. So these are some of the things I'm thinking about. Thinking about the playoffs for football this year. Stay tuned. It's going to be part of what we're talking about when we get to football, and that's coming up pretty rapidly here. First, I do like to take some feedback. There's John. John, who I think right before I came on, he was talking about, I don't know if I had a notice that Andrew Marsh was coming back, and it was from John on YouTube. Patrick says, "Good afternoon. Enjoying your show more the more I watch it." Well, Patrick, being live, you'll enjoy it more. With Michigan winning, I think you'll enjoy it more too. It's if Michigan was losing and I was sitting here crying and bitching about everything, you might be like, I don't know, I'm not really enjoying the show watching it like this. Let's see. John making a point here. He said Michigan had a playoff caliber roster, but MAC level coaching from 24 to 25. Yeah, I am not, knocking the 24-25 coaching staff. So are we just knocking Sharon? But you're talking about, when you say level coaching, that makes you seem like you're putting Wink in there or the offensive staff. And, so we know what Moore's problem was. He was distracted. Did that knock everything down to MAC level? I don't think there's any reason, John. It might make you feel good, and it might it's it's your call. You can look back, and because you might have been down on Michigan, and you kind of feel like you're sticking your chest out. The coaches sucked. I told everybody, but yeah, I'll just leave that for you. And I don't really feel like defending. Wink putting his fishing hat on the last game, going back and defending him. Why would I do it? And Sharon Moore, why would I try to, say anything that he was doing if he did anything good? And there were some things when he was sitting on the big throne of lies the whole time. So, yeah, what I'd say, John, I think you're taking an easy target, and that's all right. There's nothing wrong with sometimes taking an easy target and just firing away. You get the fish in the barrel. Hey, they're still there. You're still, coming away with a fish. Jester's Jinx is going back and talking some coffee. And it's an interesting point because he says, don't forget to pick up some Black Diesel coffee on Stadium and Packard. I did pick up some coffee yesterday. But it was not at Black Diesel. I'd have to look. It was off of Jackson Road. I was picking it up for my wife. And I told her, throw something on there for me. And she did. And I got this coffee. I don't know if this happens. I don't drink a lot of coffee out and about. I'm usually just make my own. This happens to me sometimes. I drink coffee. And I feel like it's like 50 times, I don't know, my bad. It's like 10 times stronger than what I'm drinking at home. And then it has like 10 times of the effect where I'm just like, what am I drinking? I'd say it makes me feel high, but I feel the high is not the right way. I don't feel like drunk or high. I feel supercharged. And whatever this coffee was just a black coffee. I told my wife, I was like, what is this? And I drink it, and I was supercharged. I mean, I was on cloud nine. Get me on the podcast after drinking some of that coffee. Maybe if I look at my maps, I'll be able to find out, see what it was. It's my recent places, maybe. Saved places, guys, recently added. No, that would have visited places. This would have been it. Let's see. I'm zeroing in. Got a lot at the University of Michigan. Zeroing in. No, not the hardware store. Show me all 5. I don't really need all. I got 9 visits in Ann Arbor. Arbor Farms. Yeah, I go there. All right. I can't find it. I'll have to get it. I asked my wife about it again, and she said, it's a brewery and a coffee house. It's right next to this auto body shop off of Jackson, and they've got a unique. It's not a sign. They've put together some art out front. So what it looked like to me, I didn't look at it quickly, but the oil barrels, people get them, you burn stuff in or whatever. They had all these oil barrels out front that they had made into art. That's what it looked like. Ranging from a tall one down to a short one. I was like, no, that's a pretty cool thing to put out front. And there wasn't a lot of signage or anything. You just pull up. Some dude is like, what's up? But no, man. Again, you drink a coffee, you get supercharged. And then I was drinking and I'm thinking, this is great. So be as good as this diesel that you're talking about. And again, I'll get the name for you. Jester's Jinx. Am I going to grade each position group and their potential? No, I think that as the days click by, I don't know if I'm going to be doing that in February or March, but do I think when March is when spring practice starts? When I think the middle of March, I think that there will be time. I was ready to start throwing out some of the position groups a couple of weeks ago, and then they just kept adding and adding. But it's about it looks like they're at 105. Maybe they could still find one other, or there could be an addition or subtraction. Probably an addition. Maybe they got room for one more. But yeah, I think that's going to be something I'm going to do. Off the top of my head, the front 7 on defense, that's where the biggest questions are at. And I'm going to get to the questions coming up here. Bill Wood. Bill looks so happy in his photo. That's good. Put a picture up there where you're miserable. He says, Final 4, if no major injuries and certain players who are in horrible slumps stop taking so many threes, need to pound it inside more. Yeah, Bill, I agree with that. And yet I was saying the same thing about heading into Friday's game. They need to stop. And the guy that was in the biggest slump was Yaks. And then the guy that was in the second biggest slump seemed like it was Cadeau. And what happened? And I was saying, you're not going to stop taking threes, but get them in rhythm. Take a good 3. Of course, a wide open corner 3 for Yaks. And that's not what happened at all. Yaks took a 26-foot 3 from the wing, contested, and knocked it down. Cadeau was outside, and his was not for like 22-9. I would say it was more 24, 25 feet. And he threw it up, and that one was wet. So as much as we talk about it, I'm not sure when you say stop taking so many threes, they're make more. Make a decent percentage of threes. They're not going to stop taking them. Yaks is not going to stop taking threes. Cadeau's not going to stop them. They need to make their share of threes. Again, I'm crying about it. I'm crying about the threes, but I like the point. Dusty's train is here. Izzo is on his way out the door. Yeah. Hadley joins us, and he is saying that he is sad to hear about Mickey Lolich passing away. Hadley says, I didn't know how old Hadley is. Didn't know how old Hadley is. Sounds weird. I didn't know how old you were, Hadley. I remember watching the '68 World Series and Loich going 3-0 in the series. Some great memories. I enjoyed that one more than the '84 series. Now, the '68 series was before my time, but in some ways, I liked it more than '84 as well because I would, as a kid, my uncle had a pool and we were there all the time. And he had this garage that was right next to the pool, and he would have the garage open, and all the parents would sit around there and play cards. And then he would talk about the '68 Tigers all the time. He had Michigan season tickets, my uncle. That's why I became a Michigan fan because of my uncle always talking about going down to Ann Arbor. The football stadium holds more than people that live in the city. He would say that, and you would go up, and it doesn't look like much, but then you go inside. All of these things, and you talk about Bo, and I'd be over in the corner thinking, "Wow, this is pretty awesome." But he also would talk about Mickey Lolich, and what he talked about with Lolich is that he always had to play second fiddle to Denny McLain. But my uncle claimed that he liked Lolich better than McLain, and he said that Lolich, I believe, also hit a home run right in the World Series. Had to go against the most intimidating, dominating pitcher of his time, and Bob Gibson, and who had the greatest, one of the greatest seasons ever in '68, and Lolich being the MVP of the '68 World Series was something my uncle really liked. Now, let's see how quickly we could do it here. Oh, there it is, Hadley. It's one of my prized possessions. Probably should have it in some kind of protection, but I like taking the baseballs out and playing with them. But if you look, let's see if I can get that. Mickey, there he is. The Mick. Turn that on. Mickey Lolich. It's a little bit too bright. Gates Brown. I think my dog got this ball a few times. See a couple scuffs, or it was like skidded across the. Now my camera went out. No, I'm glad you brought Mickey Lolich up. I had it in my notes, but I like Mickey Lolich too. Crazy thing. You ever want to talk baseball and compare Tarek Skubal, how many innings he's pitching, and then you compare what kind of innings that Mickey Lolich would put in. You won't. It's so unbelievable to look at. Say he pitched how many innings, and Tarek Skubal is pitching how many innings. Brandon's skipping ahead, but he's right about this one. Coffee never makes me feel supercharged. That's disappointing. It could be your diet, Ghosts and Joes. That's what. If I laugh because I understand that. If you're always down and if you're trying to find, you're not looking to be supercharged by the coffee. And I do have to admit, I was coming from the gym, so I already had the juices flowing, and I had been in the sauna, which I've been going to for. I'd like to go every day, but I don't get to go to the sauna every day. So, and then I wasn't thinking about having a coffee, and then I had it, and that's what did it. I have to say that it was the best coffee I ever had. I can drink coffee before I go to bed. Morez and Trey have given this team a big boost. This team is awesome. I go through the players. It feels like a championship team. And what are some of the markings of a championship team? When you get a superstar like Yax, and then you just start going down the list, just like, I like Morez. I like Cadeau. I like the trio of McKinney, Namari Burnett, and Roddy Gale. One of them is likely to come up big, if not two of them in a game. You don't really have to depend on that. Mara at his side, what he can bring. They've got so many of LJ Kaysen and what he can do coming off the bench. You just keep Cheddar might have a game here or there. It's fun. I should call Morez just Rez. They call him that on the broadcast, the radio broadcast. It seems like that's what maybe he likes to go by. And when I see fans calling him Rez, I feel like they know that that's what he likes to be called. I was supercharged with the coffee because I was dehydrated. Possibly. Although I believe in my own self-evaluation that I do a good job hydrating after the sauna. I don't drink in the sauna. I was reading that that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be taxed, and sweating. Don't sit there and drink in the sauna, so I don't. But when I'm done, I definitely, I don't know about pounding water, but I drink a lot. And then I always have one on the road, a water. I'm drinking one on the road. What everybody think. The GSY is talking about sponsorship patches. I just saw that recently that was cleared. And he says, if they make their way to the football jerseys, do we anticipate the same thing to occur with the basketball teams and others, or would it be sport specific? I don't know that for sure, but if I'll make my guess and say, yes, that is going to occur. If they're doing it in football, and you can make money on it, and you watch enough basketball, and basketball, the NBA already has them on there, and we know in hockey that they have them. I hate it, but what am I going to do? I complain about it. I like that advertising works. I just like complaining about it. It makes what's funny about hockey is the Red Wings had these throwback jerseys or whatever, and they had the winged wheel, which I would have thought that I would have liked on their helmets, but I looked at it and I didn't like it. And then when they put whatever, I know they had the trash thing, and then they went in the dumpster last year, so everybody was killing them on it. I hate having advertising on the side of the helmets when I'm watching it. I hate watching the basketball when they have the patch on. It makes the uniform. They used to give away uniforms in the first 5,000 kids or whatever. And when they did that, they would always have those. And it reminds me of those. So it cheapens the look of the jersey. And now that they're going to do it for football, yeah, I anticipate they're all going to be on there. Yes, I anticipate that's going to happen. What I am anticipating with football is that they are going to sell the naming rights to Michigan Stadium. I'm surprised that they haven't done that. Somebody, I don't know, I just think it's going to be Michigan Stadium brought to you by Meyer. I'm just not sure why it hasn't happened yet. It's easy money. It's just laying out there. But don't worry. I think it's going to be there. I think it will be there. Hadley says Lolich did hit a home run and face Gibson in Game 7. Tell us how you got those Tiger signatures. I've got two different 68 baseballs, and I think they might have been my son's, and he's just giving them to me. And that's how I've got them. I wish I had a better story to tell you that I was hanging around the clubhouse or something, and the 68 Tigers were there, and I walked up to each one of them, and they were like, hey, here you go. But that wasn't that is not the case. But I've got a lot of great baseball memories and stories that I could tell, but I don't have a great 68 or Mickey Lolich. I never met Mickey Lolich. And the one interesting thing about this one is that the first signature you'd think that you would look for would be Al Kaline. And I have looked, and I think that Probably have been in the sweet spot. There's John Hiller, Jim Price. These guys have all passed away. Yeah, no, I don't see K-Lines. I got a few great K-Line stories, so I have to talk about them. Yes, easy money, but I would honestly be saddened to see the stadium's naming rights be sold. As sad things go, the patch on the uniform is more sad to me than the stadium. Unless, I guess I would have to see it. It says Michigan Stadium. Are they just going to like put the bright lights and say Meyer up there? That would be sad. When they go to the opening credits, we are here at Michigan Stadium, brought to you by Meyer. I don't know, but no fans would say that. But Michigan is, they're always looking for that's what they do. That's what you do. You look for money. I always thought I thought it was real easy and cheap money, and I thought it was ridiculous when they sold the names of the coaches. The Nikki J. Harris head coach. Like, I'm never calling him the Nikki J. Harris. Hey, Nikki J. Harris but they do that in their releases and everything. Here's the Nikki J. Harris. I don't know what the basketball. Here's Jim Smith, head coach. Sell anything you can and do it. Jester's Jim says the patches, if it's going to look like it is at the bowl game. Also, the big house will never be renamed. I will go ahead and bet you on that, Jester's Jinx. We will have that standing bet. Now, when you say never, that's a long time. I will narrow it in for you, JJ. We will go for a coffee of the others choosing. And I would say, and I don't want to win this bet, I want to lose it, but I would say within 5 years that Michigan Stadium will have some sort of advertisement. It is presented by the Michigan Stadium presented by Meyer, or the Meyer Big House. Within 5 years, I'll bet that. If the naming rights are sold, I'm out. No, you're not, Bill. Don't do that. I don't like it either. Just complain about it and then ignore it. That's what you do. Just ignore it, complain, and then ignore. Complain, ignore. They don't even run ads at the stadium, let alone leasing naming rights. But there's your good point, JJ. I used to think that Michigan Stadium reminded me, we like it so much. It reminded me of Augusta National. The Masters. They didn't need to run commercials. Hell, the Masters, they don't even show the front. Do they even show the front nine even now? They don't even show it. Not live, or maybe you can buy and look at the different cameras, but they'll put a little maybe MasterCard up in the corner. But it was like that, and and they don't allow cell phones, so you don't have it. You can't be yelling, and you have to have a dress. I don't know if there's a dress code or not. Maybe there is, but I know you can't. You can't address the fans as fans. You have to call them patrons, and I know they can't. But I always thought that Michigan Stadium was like that, because you look at other stadiums, you see the advertising, and you're like, oh, and then you go to the Michigan Stadium, you're like, oh, this is pure. But then Michigan went and they put their, gigantic scoreboards up, and it says Sony, right on there. And they're like, well, Sony just paid a lot for that. So why not just drape a banner over the cement walls down? I don't think they're going to do that. But this is a good point. But I think, JJ, as much as you say it, I still think it's going to happen. Yeah, Dave, you want to get technical, I'll say you are correct, but what's the difference between an endowment and a sponsorship? You just have somebody giving you money instead of somebody giving it, to try to sell something. That's I don't know. They don't even put up statues. Yeah, you got to be careful with those. I agree. The scoreboards upgrades are worth it. Also, I'll pronounce that in English for people that are listening to the podcast. Goat, since Yo says the scoreboard upgrades are worth it. Yeah, the scoreboard's great. There is. Now, I would not want to do this. There was a thought that at some point in the 90s, Michigan just had the little scoreboard up there, and they didn't show replays. And sure enough, people would complain. Hell, people were complaining about not being able to get a cell, a connection, up until last year. Just last year, I think. I mean, 2025, you couldn't get 2024. You couldn't get a call out. I mean, it was pretty maddening. But they fixed that finally. What was going to be my point? Oh, now I remember. I would have people call up, Michigan fans that would go to the games, and they were older folks, and they would say, "I wish Michigan didn't go to the scoreboards and show replays in the stadium." And I'd say, "Why?" I'd say, "Because everybody's attention is." He contended that when you had no replay, that everybody was focused in on the game, and that it was a really part of the experience. And he said, as soon as you get the replay, you got everybody going up. And there's a point to that, but it's also, you go to the game, you want to see the replay. It's like all the buzzers and whistles that they have out there, and they've got the frisbee dog, and they got these people rolling around in balls. There's a lot of people that be like, I don't like all that. But you sound old. And people don't care if they sound old. You sound old when you say that. But do you like? I remember I hadn't been to a game since the Notre Dame game, that rain game. So I don't know, 5 years, 6 years, and they didn't have that frisbee dog. And I'm watching, and I'm like, wow, this looks like an NBA game where they've got stuff going on, but I like the frisbee dog myself, so I was thinking I like that. Now, I didn't really like the sumo balls. I kind of liked when the cheerleaders used to run around and spell Michigan. I don't know if that's old school. I don't think they do that anymore. And you'd always have the last one that had to really run and come on and kind of make the M. I always thought that was cool. I was just all right with the cheerleaders for the entertainment down there and the band. But, they've had to. Yeah, so, Jesters, hopefully we're sitting around in February of 31, and I'll say, oh, I'm going to have to get you that coffee. That's it. It's like people don't like that when people are on their phones at the game. Some people want to check the out-of-town scoreboard or whatever. Maybe put a tweet up. There's one part, and I always see people, and this just shows you that you can have this disconnect when you're a fan of anything, but there's all of these people when they see, whenever you can almost guarantee that you'll see someone when you have a picture of a game or a concert, and you'll have every single person have their phone up, and somebody in the comments will say, I liked it better when people could just enjoy the show and didn't have to have their cameras up. And there's others that say, well, why do you have to shoot a video? You're there. And what you realize is that every spot, just like at Michigan Stadium, every spot that you sit in is different. Even if you ever sit in one section and then you'll just move like one section over and down or a little bit, and the viewpoint is way different. And you've got your own keepsake. It's not a video. You've got your own video. And then you can do whatever you want with it. You have your own picture there and you shot it. So anytime I hear people complaining about taking the videos or not enjoying the moment, I say, well, what are you talking about? Everybody likes to have their own pictures and their own videos of it. Now, having said that, I am somebody that's going to be there. I'll be taking a lot of pictures and videos. And I do have one that is a great video. It is of the first Michigan night game of the touchdown. And I am taking the video from right under the goalpost on the field. And I did a pretty good job of being able to get that video. I'm proud of it. Uh-oh. GDSPE says, Mr. Brightside, the phenomenon is overrated. But then follows it up and says he realizes not everything is for me. There's a couple things to that. What I like that song. And I think the part where you're saying it's not for you, you have to look and just see how many people like it. The people, they love it. They don't just like it. They love it. And I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again quickly. I've seen, I don't know, TikToks or something where people go around and they're interviewing the students. They say, hey, what's your favorite tradition at Michigan Stadium? All of them say Mr. Brightside. All of them. And then when you're at the game and they're showing they're doing it. If you're not singing, you looking up at the scoreboard and they're playing the video and they're going, the people you could just see how much people like it. They just love it more than anything in the world. So you can't take that away from folks. It's just great. The Big House, presented by Domino's. Yes. That's going to cost Jester's Jinx of coffee when that happens. I never understood why people care about what others are doing to enjoy the game. Yeah, if they're not really bothering you. It really comes up at a concert. I screwed up one time. I was at a Boston concert, and I made my way to, maybe it was the front row. I was standing right in front of the guitar, so he's over there jamming everything, and I've got my phone, and I'm right on him. But instead of taking my own personal video, which is what I should have done, I was on some sort of social media, and I went live. And I don't know how many people watched me there. Who knows? 50 maybe? They might have been like, wow, that's a pretty cool video. But then after it was over, the video was gone, and I didn't have it anymore. And so for me, it was for naught. Yeah, I was standing there the whole time. So, wow, this is pretty awesome. I wish I would have had that video. Play Mr. Brightside at halftime, before the fourth quarter. There's a little bitter Brightsides. It's all right. So it was mentioned about this weekend. Hockey on Friday. Michigan State, 1-2. Speaks for itself. In Ann Arbor. Awesome. They will also play Saturday down in Detroit. Brilliant. I mean, it's just college hockey, Michigan State. I can't wait. I'm going to be watching both of those games, no doubt. And then Super Bowl Sunday, I like my weekends to be filled with 3 window levels of games. I like it during the football season when I say, okay, what's the 12 o'clock game? What's the 3:30 game? And what's the night game? In the NFL, we always know there's one, there's 4:15, and then there's the Sunday night game. 3 games, 3 windows. Super Sunday, we've got a real Michigan Super Sunday. 1 o'clock, Michigan at Ohio State on CBS. 3 o'clock, the women are hosting UCLA. That is on FS1 or Fox. It's on, say, local cable. So you've got from 1 till almost kickoff. 3. You get a little bit of time there to maybe cook up or pull out your snack, whatever you're going to do for the Super Bowl. Maybe go somewhere. But 3 levels, 3 games. Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan, UCLA, the women's team. And then you got the Super Bowl. It's a real great. It's a great one. The duel in the D. You mean the Berenson Trophy? Yeah, I've heard that thing weighs 40 pounds. It's actually not called the Berenson Trophy. I think it's called the Mason Cup after Ron Mason from State. But every time Michigan wins it, they take a piece of paper and they put the Berenson Cup on there. I like that. I've seen that. I think that's a public. Who cares? I don't think they care. Or not. All right, let's get to football. Football, a few different things. Oh, I'm going to make one note. I have been on after every Michigan basketball game this year. And this month, there are 2 games that I will not be on afterwards. And one is tomorrow night. I'm going to the Pistons game. So I will not have a Michigan postgame live show tomorrow after the game. But, I'll watch it and talk about it on Friday. Also, the Duke game of all games. I'll be in Wisconsin with the Michigan hockey team. So I will not be able to do the post game for Michigan and Duke. I will not be at the duel in a D, but man, that's a ticket that is awesome to have and a great game to go to. So I am envious of you. You should have a great time. What a night. What a weekend. So Whittingham came out. They put the dates out for spring practice. Those are cool. And then a couple things. And I have to admit that my first reaction for this was, I was like, well, what? What's all this? Is everybody getting a participation trophy? How many captains does Michigan have? Now, what's a leadership council? I didn't know what any of this stuff was. I mean, I know what a captain is, but Michigan, I've never heard of a team announcing captains. You vote for the captains. But look, I also had to take a step back and say, look, Whittingham, this doesn't mean that he doesn't understand Ann Arbor. He's just some Utah guy, or this is, something stupid. I don't know if any of those things, he is a Utah guy, but I don't know if saying it's stupid. I can't say that even if I felt it was odd. And if I was asked to, I was like, these guys aren't getting voted, but, Rod Moore has been a 2. So these are 3-time captain. And Jordan Marshall, there's no more of a Michigan man that's ever been. If you've ever listened to Jordan Marshall talk, I mean, he is made to be a Michigan captain, Michigan man. So yeah, Bryce Underwood, it's nice to have your quarterback be a captain. But these are just spring captains, but it almost feels like you're pretty much telling everybody who you want to vote for when it comes down to, and then who's that? Trey Pierce, 95. He's a captain too. All right. So not a big deal. But then there was this other part where the leadership council, and then so now everybody's, I've never heard of a leadership council. I don't even know, is it in business that they have leadership councils? Does any other team ever? I've never myself heard of any other team having a leadership council. But again, this is Whittingham. I don't know. It's not the worst thing in the world. I don't know. It might just be fine. I don't know. It sounds like I'm complaining. I sound like I am being negative about it. My one guy here who always says I am negative would come on here and said, "What are you complaining about the leadership council for?" I don't know. I'm just saying it's odd. It reminds me of when the first time I was ever involved in any kind of I was in a bowling league when I was like 6 or 7. And at the end of the bowling league, I wasn't expecting a trophy, but they gave us a trophy. And it said, "I tried." It had a couple pins and a ball there. And I was like, "Eh, all right." But the funny thing about the "I tried" participation trophy that I got, I never threw it out. I kept it. Probably still have it. And then people complained all through the years, like, "You don't give participation trophies out." And I was like, "I kind of like my little bowling trophy, but I get it." But does it cheapen the captaincy to have not only 4 spring captains that are supposed to be voted on by the players, or used to be, not supposed to, different coach, different strokes, but now a leadership council? Where's everybody else when it comes to the leadership council? Are these guys tremendous leaders? Hopefully. But that's aside. Maybe they will vote. I do have to admit that and this is an age thing. When I was growing up, they would have 2 captains. They would vote on the offense and the defense, and that was it. And I like that. And then Brady Hoke was like, "Well, we're going to have 6 or 7 captains." And then what was it? "We're not even going to name captains," or whatever. "We're just going to have a captain every game." And it's like, just make some captains. Just have 2 of them. But now I think everybody wants to be a captain, so they've expanded it. I've just had to get used to that. And it's kind of the same thing with the spring council. Now, Jesters, this is a great gesture. And I could buy you're already giving me a coffee. But let's read what Jesters has to say here. He says he's not sure if I am a fan of how more than half of these guys entered the portal. I appreciate the situation they were all in and all. I want leaders who aren't on their way out in a crisis. Thoughts? Yeah, well, that's even deeper than I was thinking. My thought was, in which I didn't even go through and think about, guys going in through the portal or not. Let me see how you said it. More than half of these guys entered the portal. Well, none of the spring captains did, but Zeke was in there. Was Frazier in there for a second, and then he came back? Marsh never was. We're going to get to him in a moment. Okay, yeah, Etta, he was, but he came back. Not Marshall. Oh, we got 2 Marshalls. Zach Marshall. Yeah, Guarniera was in the portal. He came back. I don't know if Shug Hill ever was. Sip, Sprague, portal. And then, Nico. White shoes. Only thing I really know about him. He wears white shoes. Nico, white shoes. Stands out. So, you're not a fan of how more than half of these guys entered the portal. Does this speak to the leadership council who are not on their way out in a crisis? Thoughts? Yeah, I think that you and I need to take my advice about rolling with the punches and getting with the sign of times. We sound a little bit like Tom Izzo. Their whole State's thing on Friday was Michigan's buying their players through the portal. Well, State was buying players through the portal too. They just didn't get very good ones. And their whole thing was, they didn't say nurture them. Actually wrote it down so I thought that I wouldn't forget. Let's see how they said it. Bought versus built. Like, and so there's something to that, but the name of the game now in college football, yeah, you love your team, and all those things those are still important things. But if you're a player and you're getting paid, I just look at the transfer portal as a tool to to negotiate. If I was Jake Garnera and Michigan came and said, "Yeah, well, we have you down. We'll give you 100,000." I don't know how much he ended up getting, but let's just say that's what Michigan they came to his price, and he's like, his agents working the phones, and his agent's like, we can get you 150, we can get you 200, and Jake's just like, "Yeah, well, I'm gonna hit the transfer portal," and then that makes Michigan say, "Well, what is it now?" I mean, it's just a tool. It's a different game now. Whether it works out with Bryce Underwood or not, I hope so. I'm going to get to a little bit more on him as well. It was worth the money to try to get a great quarterback. I don't hold it against him that he was the highest paid ever of recruit. If Michigan re-upped him and I think gave him more money again this year, but if they didn't and somebody was out there and wanted to give him a couple more million and he was ready to do it, it's like Marsh. Marsh would have taken off if Michigan wanted to up their money. You've got to pay. So yeah, I'm not holding that against college players. I don't hold it against. I was going to say I don't hold it against, but I don't like holdouts necessarily. But I don't guys going for the most money that they can get when they can get it. It's not going to make me think that they're not leaders who are, going to skip out on a way to crisis. If there's a crisis and you can look and say, I can go somewhere else, I could, win, I can get more money. I don't know how many people are sitting around saying, well, I just get my degree. It's nice. There might be a few. Jolo says, how do we know that these positions weren't selected by voting? We don't. So you're right about that. Although I could have been, I could be wrong about that. My only thought was that they're not all, the team isn't all together. So how are you polling everyone? But you can probably just, send a text out. text who you want to be a spring captain, text who you want to be on the leadership council. They're all working out in the weight room. Drop the name on the way out. Good point. They could have. Couple more on this. I think a large number of them entered the portal because they were advised to in order to make sure they are fetching top market value for their skill. I just like it all as well. Yeah, I'm not. People are worked up about the portal and guys going in it. I'm looking at this each and every year. You're going to have a turnover, maybe a ton of turnover. And every year you're a free agent. And if I'm a free agent every year, I'm thinking about, I want to be every year in the best position. So I am looking at school. I am looking at playing time. I am looking at money. I am looking at where I can go to win. I'm looking at all of those. There might be a couple other factors, maybe family, weather. There's all kinds of things that I would put in there. And if at the end of the year, I feel like I can go to a better place, I have that option. It's nice to have options. I'm really not going to be down on a guy who could potentially make more money and go somewhere else. You can say, oh, well, you can not like him. Hey, you're not a Michigan man anymore, whatever. I understand. This is how it goes now. Get to work in class watching the show. All right. Thank you, Jesters. We appreciate it. We do have, what else? I've got two more things for you. And one of them is the most important thing, and I think I should have led with it, but I'm saving it for last. This, right before I came on the show, crossed the wire or crossed my phone, and it was ESPN talking about the playoffs, and the category that Michigan fell into was who is primed to make a college football playoff breakthrough. And Michigan was on this list. Now, of course, they've been in the college football playoffs pretty recently, but that's what they said. They called it a college football breakthrough. ESPN had Michigan's recruiting class at 11, and they had their transfer class as a top 10. Top 10, if you combine those two, pretty easy. Top 10 when you combine the recruiting class and transfer class ranking, according to ESPN. One outlet, not bad. I'll just read it quickly. He says, given the timing of Sharon Moore's firing, this is what ESPN said, Michigan's pivot to Kyle Whittingham looks like a best-case outcome. He tapped into his Utah pipeline to bring over several former Utes in the transfer portal, including defensive end John Henry Daly, who is a physical run defender and culture setter. Whittingham was able to pluck SC's next 300 athlete, Salisi Moa, number 39, whose blend of speed, toughness, and ball skills could have him contributing early at receiver or in the secondary. Whittingham also mostly held together an incoming high school class that is headlined by a pair of 5-stars. In defensive end, Carter Meadows, a lengthy and edge rusher, and running back Savion Hyder, who has a great opportunity to see the field right away with Justice Haynes moving on. The class is strongest at edge, receiver, and corner, premium positions that should help accelerate Michigan's transition. So, yeah, hey, I'm thinking that Michigan should be in the mix to make the college football playoffs. Going back to earlier, is it a failure? I'm not ready to say that, although it feels like if Michigan doesn't make the playoffs next year, it would be. However, I have to balance a little bit of that with this murderous schedule that they have. But yes, my expectations right now today are that they make the playoffs. My final thing is I get how it was John earlier who was trashing Michigan's coaching staff from last year. Understandable. Chip Lindsey, who developed the starting quarterback for the Patriots on Sunday, Drake May. I remember what everybody was saying about Chip Lindsey as a quarterback coach and developer of quarterback talent. Look at what he did with Drake May. That sounded pretty good. But now when they got the new staff, it was like, oh, dedicated quarterback coach, Coy Detmer. Like this was now. That was like a really big deal. So it didn't feel like just saying that was that big of a deal to me, but it does to others, and that's fine. And we do know that there's a new offensive coordinator, and they're going to have to learn the new system and all that. But I thought that one of the biggest things immediately for Bryce Underwood was what he was going to do this offseason. And was he going to tap into Tom Brady and say, Brady, what should I do? And my guess is that Tom would have said, you need to go see a quarterback guru like Tom House or Jordan Palmer, these guys that work on your mechanics and your footwork and your delivery and all of these things. And I thought this was going to be it was going to be a huge thing to see if Underwood was going to do it. And what happened is that Underwood appears to have done just that. I have a picture of Bryce Underwood on the screen and over to the left and over to the right. This is the quarterback guru, Jordan Palmer. Now, Underwood working with Jordan Palmer should be music to your ears. This is exactly what you want. I think more than the Whittingham hire, who his offensive coordinator is, who his dedicated quarterback coach is with Detmer, working with on his mechanics and his footwork with the very best. Now, you want to say it was House or you want to say it was Palmer. Palmer has worked with a number of pro quarterbacks that you could look at the list and say, wow, those guys, Mahomes, Allen. Yes, this is the guy who they worked with. And so to me, this is just fantastic news. I think it's the headline news. Marsh being back is important as well. I don't know if he was pictured with the team working out and everything, so he wasn't in the portal, but they threw his name up there and said, bring him back. So point to be able to talk about him and say, hey, awesome to have him back. It is awesome. He's Michigan's wide receiver number 1. He's extremely talented. He's a smooth player, and Bryce Underwood has to have a big smile on his face. But I think that's great news. I think it's the biggest news that I've seen, maybe since the recruiting, but that is awesome. Well, Goats lost the audio. Maybe I'm out. Maybe nobody can hear me. Okay. Mr. Big Dad says Bryce Underwood is poised for greatness. He is willing to put in the work to be great along with natural talent. I'm going to agree with you, Mr. Big Dad. That's what this is saying to me. That, he's got his guys and, he has been working, but, now he's going out and he's going and he's searched out and he's working with the best. And it never seemed to be a question of him putting in the work or what kind of teammate or how smart he is. All of those things people always talk about that that these things, I don't know if you're smart, how much you measure that, but all of it, they like that. They like it. So great news for Michigan. One last reminder, I will not be on the basketball postgame live show tomorrow. I will see you on Friday for the big super weekend, including hockey and basketball on both sides of the aisle, the women and the men on Super Sunday. It's going to be a great weekend. I'm going to enjoy this Wednesday tomorrow. Head to the Pistons game, and I will talk